Alrighty, what's up, guys? So we just made it back from YCS Indianapolis, and today I'm gonna start doing basically a series where every time I go to a major event, I'm gonna do a YCS or event recap. Now, this is gonna be my personal perspective, not just like the event itself. I will cover the decks that entered the top cut and what I think the format is shaping up to be, as well as other things. However, this is going to be also my personal perspective, and I'm going to talk about how I did in the tournament and as well as like just experiences overall. So first things first, I do want to say that out of all the trips I've gone so far, this was probably my favorite. I really like the city of Indianapolis. It was pretty fun. Got to go to a Pacers game, got to go out clubbing. The downtown was really nice. Overall, pretty much enjoyed it. And the venue as well was a lot better than the other venues I've been to. It was ginormous, and we were just in one of the like 20 halls they had. So, yeah, it was a huge venue, and it had a lot of space. And I think it was ran very smoothly. It was very clean. I think honestly, 10 out of 10 experience as far as the venue and the city go. Now, as for the tournament itself, I did not do great. Unfortunately, I actually did get hard cheated. I did mention this already on my Facebook. Some people have asked me what happened. I pretty much explained it to the people who were at the venue. I haven't really super explained it to a lot of other people, so I'm just gonna, post this video and explain it. But basically, I'm not gonna lie. Regardless, it was looking rough from the beginning. Unfortunately, the first thing that happened was that there was a high amount of players. It was 1,947, but it was below the top 64 cut. Therefore, it was a huge amount of players only for it to be top 32, which means you had to go X11 to guarantee topping. There was a lot of X2s that bubbled out. I have a friend that unfortunately ended up X2 and he did not make it, which is unfortunate, but honestly, it's a really, really good record to have at YCS, so I'm proud of him. Shout out to Rennie Bruno. Aside from that, like it was already difficult for that. And then I lost my first round one. I've never lost a round one at a major event. And this was the first time I did it. I was feeling pretty prepared for the event. We actually had like a cash tournament in the we stayed at an Airbnb with 11 people, 11 players, of which two of them were pretty big names. Lars Bergquist, who got second at Nats, and then there was this Jose Osoris, who's a Latin player who's done very, very well for himself. And so we had a cash tournament, and I ended up taking first place at that tournament. So I was feeling pretty good. Did a lot of testing versus Rescue Ace and Unchained, and I felt pretty good until I felt better into the Unchained matchup. The Unchained and Pearly matchup were feeling very, very confident. Unfortunately, Rescue Ace, I felt a little less confident, but the more I tested, the more I felt more comfortable with the matchup, and I honestly thought it would have been fine. I did play Rescue Ace in my first round, and unfortunately, game one, I bricked, like absolute bricked. I never bricked like that in my life. It was Shade Brigandine, double droplet, called by Draco back, and I forgot what else. And then I did go second because I lost the Dyro and I drew just a wielder, and they had full combo, four sets, double negates. Like it just didn't matter. If I had gone first, I still would have lost because I literally drew a monster for turn. And even with that monster, because it was not a PK monster, I really wouldn't have been able to do anything. So we lost that game. And then unfortunately in game two, they did Ash the Water Enchantress, which left me vulnerable to the Evenly, and he threatened battle immediately. I could tell he wasn't bluffing, so I went into SP. SP dodged the Evenly. However, I kept a Fog Blade. He then normal summoned the level 4 starter, the Airlifter. I Fog Bladed it, and unfortunately, he did have the wanted poster. So he pretty much just full comboed after Ash evenly and getting his first starter negated. So unfortunately, sometimes they just draw better. It is what it is. It happens. So we started off with a round one loss, which means it was not looking good for us, anyways. We did make it to round five X1, but then I ended up playing a tier element player who was the person who hard cheated me. So this is basically what happened. Um, the player went Keldo, Kelback Mill 5. Saw what I was on. Declared Rhinoheart, Sharon, and Cashier tier elements. Then realized he could not fuse with Sharon for some reason. Oh, he hadn't declared Reinhardt yet, I believe. I think he declared it after. I'm not sure. Point is, he declared Sharon, and he said, "Oh, never mind, I can't fuse." Which I said, "Are you sure?" Looked at his graveyard. He had two tier element cash and a Reinhardt, so he couldn't fuse with any of those because that doesn't actually make anything. However, he had two cards in hand. I asked him if he was sure, and he said, "Yes, I am 100% sure." I then proceeded to keep track of his cards, and he later did something else that was kind of shady, which wasn't. This was him just messing up. It wasn't an illegal play, but he messed up. It is what it is. You're at a YCS. Unfortunate. You're not. I'm not gonna let you take back a mess up. So he made Dark with Garura, and then effective. He goes effective Dark, target a monster, and then he goes, oh, Garura first, and he goes to draw. And I'm like, no, you declared Dark already. Dark's not an unsummon effect. You cannot now go back and be like, oh, I'm a Garura draw. So thankfully for that, I knew the card in his hand remained the same, and then we went into our combo, and we started playing, and you know, what ended up happening was I broke through his board very, very easily, and I played through his stuff, but unfortunately I was in a position where one Bistio killed me, which there shouldn't have been because the last card should have been known. He goes Magma Hut, and he Magma Hutted my last card and banished it. And unfortunately, even though I told myself keep track of this, I didn't. Like I did, but then I was so deep in this combo that I just forgot. And since I forgot, he was able to go ahead and hit me with the Magma Hut, resolving it. I ended up scooping. I go into not even game two. I go into siding and I realize, wait a minute, you never drew. That card was the same. You could have resolved. And he started acting super shady, looked away, wasn't answering, this, that, whatever, blah, blah. So I put a little bass in my voice and I'm like, am I right? And then he goes, yeah, you're right. Like he admitted to it. And I was like, oh my God. I called Judge. First judge that came was completely new at judging. I explained the situation. The guy was like, let me talk. And the judge literally just ran away, came back with another judge. And so the first thing that happened there is now in my head, it's like confused because judge came back. So I'm like, oh, assistant head judge, even though it wasn't assistant head judge who came, the new judge that came. And then secondary, I also was scared of like rule sharking, getting a rule shark warning. But this guy was cheating, like he dead ass cheated. And so the judge came back and he gave him a PE minor. A PE minor. That is not the correct penalty at all. And I tried to like argue it, but I didn't appeal because I got nervous and I got scared, and I should have appealed. I've spoken to multiple judges, head judges since then, and not only would it have been like it wouldn't have been. I knew it wasn't a PE minor. I thought it was going to be like a PE major and get a game loss, but no, it's a UC, which is cheating, which would have resulted in a DQ for him, and he did deserve it because he was super shady, like made it very clear, and then even trying to do other illegal plays during the game three, but whatever. So game two, I smoked him. It was a 2-minute game. Game two was so fast, whatever. Then game three, he sets up his whole board. I don't have any PK names, but I played through it really, really well. Talents take the Mud Dragon. I eclipsed the board. He had Sulik set. He had no interruptions left except for the two shufflers, which unfortunately I didn't have anything graveyard. I then used the Mud Dragon and the Shade Brigandine after Draco back bouncing the Sulik with Shade Brigandine. I then Zeus wipe the board. He has no triggers. I leave him on just Sulik in hand. And he top decks a danger, of course. All I have is a droplet at this point. And he literally just plays Yu-Gi-Oh! And wins. Not much I could have done there, unfortunately. If I had gotten that, even if it had just been a game loss for him, I would have been fine. I would have won off that game loss because he did not deserve to win in that game two. I mean that game one. And honestly, it really, really messed up my mentality because like I've gotten game losses before other stuff, but this guy cheated me and he ended up winning and he had good luck after cheating. It was crazy. And so like it really hurt my mentality because it's like I outplayed him completely. I played so much better than him and he won because he cheated. So that really really hurt my mentality. Either way, unfortunately at this tournament an X2 that early is already you're out. So I basically just played to attempt to make it a day two so that I could do a deck profile, but I knew I was gone. I knew it was over. And then I made it to round seven, and at round seven I played a flu player who honestly my favorite loss of the day. He was a really good guy. He was really fun. We talked really nicely during the game and after the game. And I got him game one. He scooped without showing me the deck he was on. Then game two, he set up board. I played through it pretty well, but wasn't enough gas, so he ended up getting it. And then game three, he shifters me at the right time. I called by the shifter, but then I get hit with Dark Ruler evenly. So
Mm.
unfortunately, he got that game. Because then he also has Robina map in hand, of course. And then he gets Stree, vanishes my Torn Scale. It just wasn't fun at that point. But honestly, bro, he was a good player. He was a very nice guy. Best loss of my opinion. Like I don't regret. Like I'm not mad about that loss in any way. You know those happens. That's why we have cushion losses that I should have had a cushion loss for. Because if I had lost that late in round two, which I wouldn't have even played, I would have been X1 up until then for sure. But the thing is, I wouldn't have even played him probably because he was X2. and I would have played more than likely flu because there wasn't that many flu. I mean, like there was X2 flus a lot. Like I played a flu player, and then there was two flu players next to me, and then my friend Jack, shout out to him who got top 32, he played flu, but I just didn't hear of that many other flu players. Um, Regardless, flu is a good matchup. It's just that shifter is not. I did have called by for the shifter, but he had dark roll evenly, which is insane. Um, that did warrant a small change in my deck. I've already been cooking up some changes, and they're to come. Hopefully by next YCS, I will have these changes updated. Hopefully they'll make a difference. Either way, though, it's unfortunate because I really feel like my momentum would have kept going, and I would have for sure made it to day two if I had gone an X1. If I had not got an X2 because of that tier player, of course, would I have topped? That's a hard thing to say because I could have easily gone X2 at any other point or X2 and X2-1 in day two. And that would have unfortunately just been the end of it. But I think I would have been X2 day one going into day two at the very least. Like I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have gone an X3 if I hadn't gotten that cheating. Especially because I was super prepared for Pearly, super prepared for Unchained, and I didn't face those at all. So it's really unfortunate what happened to me. But I've learned from my mistakes. Guys, appeal all your calls to be honest, because you're guaranteeing you're getting an experienced judge that knows what they're doing, and there really isn't much to say about that. The event overall was really good. Had a good time. Watching Jeff Leonard, which if you guys don't know, he goes to my locals. We call him Pops. Exodia somebody on stream was awesome. It was hilarious. Um, and yeah, overall, we had two people make it to day two. One of them ended up X2. Unfortunately, he didn't top. But it was a good event, good experience, good practice. Now, my main takeaways for the format are first and foremost, I had thought about cutting the dark for a Typhon. And thank God I didn't because dark is insane in this format. Bringing back people's little knights, bringing back people's IPs, it's really just insane. This was actually an SP. I had updated it on DB to play a pre-AGOP game for a war, but I did play SP for the tournament, and SP was insane. You definitely need to play this card. This is a format warping card. I think this card is insane. It checks Unchained really well. It checks itself really well. The card is kind of crazy. I think SP is going to be the card of the format. I think Dark is going to be a very good card that should also be in everybody's extra deck. As people are doing Selene routes and things like that. I think the Vanadium deck getting more popular due to Triff and Hani is going to be good for us PK players because we actually have a decent matchup into it. I do admit that the Triff's list specifically with the enemy controllers can be a little bit of an issue as I played a friend who set up full board plus droplet and enemy controller, and that was what kind of sealed the deal to be honest. But I tested against Vanadium prior to the event, and I was doing fine. We can play easily through negations, and we can actually get pretty far with Cherubini protections and dumping and doing all this stuff. So yeah, I was very ready for Unchained, pretty very for Vanadium, and I think Vanadium getting a boost is gonna help us a decent amount. The reason why I ran Chalices was free because droplets, I mean not droplets, Bistler became more popular. I think the list is pretty good going on. Now, I know a lot of you heard about this guy right here. Sorry, I don't know his name. Oh, he doesn't have his name here. I'm sorry. Oh, Tyler. Tyler, who was able to make it to day two. He was X2-1, unfortunately, day one, so I knew he wasn't zombing. I don't know if he had already run the math and knew, but I did. But honestly, I mean, he did really well. And I know everybody has been talking to me about the horror stuff. I did have access to horror stuff, and I still do. But I personally don't like them. They don't fit my playstyle and whatnot, but I really like his list because he still played the dangers, which my issue with the list that I had seen, the one that won that box tournament from Italian Yu-Gi-Oh, was that it had no three axis at all, which made it very difficult to get into Cherubini, to get into your bracer plays and whatnot. And that was not great. But this guy clearly knows what he's doing. I really like that he cut the Brave engine down by cutting the right. I don't know how I feel about him cutting the Illegal Knight, as the Illegal Knight is a dark body that helps you with the Mseti. Overall, I personally am not the biggest fan of this list. Not the list of the Horrors engine itself, as I feel the Horrors engine is really good. I just feel like it's couldn't be better in other stuff or just as its own thing, like a Bestial Horse did top. But I think the list he played was awesome. I think he probably piloted the deck well, which to be honest, my thing is, I don't care what version of PK you play, as long as you pilot the deck well, I feel like you'll be fine. I think the deck has a lot of skill points that are very, very important, and if you know how to pilot the deck, you will actually do well. So, shout out to him. I will leave his video down in the description. I think his list was really, really good. I think if you're gonna play Horus, I think you should play something similar along the lines of what he played. I do think you need to make sure you have enough threes to still make Cherubini. And yeah, I think it was pretty good. Aside from that, I will hopefully have Pops on the podcast soon. And overall, pretty good experience. The only thing else I would say about my list that I really like called by. I added it in last minute and it put in so much work. It stopped the shifter. It forced a solemn judgment against Dragon Link, which was interesting. And in general, it just seems to be the correct call. The small changes that I'm going to make probably involve cutting this down to two with a Book of Moon added, because I think the books are insane in this deck, and I think being able to book your Griffin is super important. As with Rescue Ace now being probably the best deck, or at least the most represented deck, evenly match is going to be everywhere, and being able to negate the evenly match is very important. So if they dark ruler you and then evenly you can still go Griffin and then book, which will save you from losing to evenly. Furthermore, you can also do a few other plays. In my rulings video, I show a few ways to play around the Griffin negate. But yeah, Dropless was insane. I think Dropless is going to continue being a really good card this format. Um, Other than that, I really didn't get a chance to like super test the deck at the level because of the things that happened. But the deck performed very well. I think PK is actually in a solid point. A lot of people have been telling me, oh, like Ghost for real. He messaged me. He's like, hey, I went to this 3v3 and I went undefeated. My teammates didn't, but I did. And yeah, I think PK is actually at a pretty decent point. That doesn't mean it's meta. Obviously, it's not. It didn't top the event at all. But I think it's a really, really good rogue pick. I think you can definitely get your regional stops with this deck right now, and you can definitely slip into a YCS with it if you play it well, have a good day. Unfortunately, was not my day. Allowed myself to get cheated, allowed myself to not appeal the ruling, and that happens. But I mean, this guy went X2-1. If he had been at a larger YCS with a few more people, and had won his following rounds, because more people would also mean more rounds. But let's say he win those rounds, he then tops the YCS. So I think the deck is very, very playable. I think it's one of its most playable moments possible. I think it's a really, really good deck, and if you guys like the deck, it's definitely worth playing. All right, guys, I'll see you guys next time when we go to Richmond. Hopefully, we do a little bit better and don't let ourselves get cheated then.